Boy, I sure do miss Wesley. Goodbye now. Goodbye, everybody. I'm Wesley Crusher. I'm leaving the show now. Goodbye. What was that about? Hello, what do we have here? Easy pickings. Hello, crew. Welcome to the HMS Dingwall. I'll be your captain, Lieutenant Mark. And this is Star Trek Prodigy, Season 2, Episodes 11 and 12, The Last Flight of the Protostar. And just to be upfront with you, I thought these episodes were fantastic. But let's not spoil why. Let's watch the review, shall we? This was another two-parter. Two-parters are interesting in New Trek because New Trek is typically, a 10-parter, as in the whole season is just one episode broken up. If you're not considering Star Trek Strange New Worlds and maybe Lower Decks, which are more episodic. As you know, Wesley sent us halfway across the quadrant with his Magic Traveler technology to this planet, which we now know as planet Isida. They call it P-Class, but I assume P means paradise, because this is one of the coolest looking planets ever. Definitely putting a pin in this one to come back later. It's dangerous, but beautiful. But that's what makes something cool. Beauty, danger, strangeness in equal measure, right? That's space for you. But this is Prodigy. We're here to save Chakotay, and we do go to the right planet. Wesley didn't make a mistake. We wake up here, the Protostar is there, the Chakotay is there, but what are we going to do? Thanks, Wesley, for giving us instructions. All we know is that we need to be here, and we need to save Chakotay. The details are up to us, and it proves to be a little bit complex, because, as Dal says, Chakotay is converted into a beach bum. You've seen the old trope before. Our favorite characters reduced to wild and crazy old people in the middle of nowhere. Except this time, it's awesome. This time, it's Cowboy Chakotay. And he has the cowboy hat. He looks freaking cool. And he's living on this planet. And he's eating these fruit. In a cool montage, we see the time pass. And we do this, cinematically. So we can show time passing to an anomalous degree, like how much time we're going by here. It's ambiguous. It's left that way on purpose. It could be years. Chakotay is collecting these fruit, and he's getting the fish eggs off these fish that swim around, seemingly in the sky. We find out that's not really the case later. And he looks like he's just living it up. And if I'm not mistaken, this looks like a vacation. But that's just me. Maybe I will retire here. I don't know. Maybe this is my Talos 4. If when Pike is concerned, that'll come up again later. Pike? What does Pike have to do with this? Maybe you'll see. Chakotay, portrayed by Robert Beltran. What can I say? The performance here, it runs the gamut. We have angry, mean Chakotay, who sounds like a different character than regular Chakotay. And then we go back to like normal, heroic Chakotay. And then we get to see the full range, and we get like sad, despondent Chakotay. And Robert Beltran is just belting it out at every single line. And I have no idea how Janeway, Chakotay, their actors can come back into this, not lose a beat. Like nothing changed since Voyager. It's genuinely incredible. Like I said before, though, voice acting is pretty much always perfect in Prodigy so far, and this is no exception. So we meet angry Chakotay, who says, well, Isida is a dangerous planet. Watch out for the ion storms. Have fun, guys, essentially, and just, like, closes the Protostar's bay doors and lets them out there just to, survive with the tent against the ion storms. But this is mean Chakotay. This isn't normal Chakotay. Our characters aren't afraid of a little ion storm, according to Dal, but they're not going to survive up here. We find out that Chakotay survived here 10 years. 10 years? But I thought that the Protostar just went through that wormhole thing. temporal mechanics. Maj'el, explain it. We don't need any more of that. What this means is that going through the wormhole, going through what amounts to a time machine, it doesn't always spit you out when you think it's going to spit you out. If I go back, I think I'm going back a year. I might go back 10. I might go forward 1. We just don't know. But Chakotay has been here for 10 years. He's been hashing it out on Asita, and you can tell it's really taking a toll on him. In the beginning of the episode, we learned that he's doing things to keep his mind busy, which is always a good thing when you're in the middle of nowhere. He's making little wooden miniatures of his entire crew. He reminds me a little bit of Decker from, what was it? TOS Doomsday Machine? Is that what it was? The one with the big ice cream cone that swallows everything? He lost his entire crew, essentially, and now he's gone crazy. But not quite that crazy, thankfully. How are we going to get this Protostar off this planet to fix the timeline? We need to save Gwyn. Gwyn's having some timey-wimey problems. And we're also being, menaced by the Loom. And the fish out of water characters are useful in complicated plots. And plots are especially complicated when they involve time travel. And this one has time travel in spades, like it or leave it. How do we explain this to the audience? Well, Chakotay doesn't know what's going on, so we'll explain it to him. Thankfully, Chakotay is our fish out of water here. And our characters that he has met before, the Galactic Raiders, whatever. Not really. We find out they're Starfleet instantaneously, essentially, by the outfits. They explain to Chakotay what's happening, and in a sense, explain to us what is happening. So, listen, we're being chased by the Loom. We need to get the Protostar back to where it belongs, and we can't have the timeline be messed up anymore. And to do that, Chakotay, we need you and the Protostar off this planet. You dig? So we explain that to the audience, as well as Chakotay. Chakotay ain't having it, but Catherine really sticks the knife in. That would be Hologram Janeway. I'm not letting them in. He would have. See, Janeway can say these things because Janeway is a hologram. I wouldn't say that to Chakotay because he'd kill me. Crazy 10-year on Asita Chakotay, Chakotay, cooler edition. That's a matter of opinion, and your mileage may vary, as I want to say. So we do kind of, poke the Chakotay bear into allowing our characters on the ship. And it's so odd, right? This is the Protostar, just, removed from time. It must be strange for our crew, and especially Dal, to come back to this ship that's not theirs, but is theirs. Imagine, if you will, if I came on the Dingwall, and it was a different crew, and I was trying to explain to them that, no, I'm from this crew. And they didn't really get it. But then because we're in Star Trek, we know there's multiple timelines. But we're not in joke comedy Star Trek. We're not in Lower Decks, so we don't understand timeline shenanigans here. If this were Lower Decks, they'd immediately know we're having a timeline problem because they know Star Trek, as well as, we do. So Chakotay does let us in. We do kind of have our little campfire scenario with Janeway, and just when we thought we had one instance of explaining things to the audience, we explain them again to Janeway because we inform Janeway everything that's happened up to this point, essentially summarizing, season 1, and at the same time summarizing it for us. See, we're onboarding the kids. That's important. We onboard our characters, Dal, Zero, Jankom, Jankway. We onboard those kids as well as onboarding the kids in the real world to get on board with this show and get them up to speed. After all, we do like to go fast on this show. We explain what happened to us along the way before we got to Prodigy Season 2, before we got to this point to have this campfire scenario with old hologram Janeway. And we know now that Adrik is dead. Yeah, the old beak guy, Mr. Chicken, he's gone. He's fried. He's well and truly fried, and he must have smelled so good. Janeway tells us that Adrik had a plan to get off this planet. Their one last hope was Adrik to go off on his lonesome into the deserts of Asita. Very dangerous, and I can understand Chakotay not wanting to lose any more crew, especially Adrik, but Adrik goes off there all alone, trying to find antimatter. Apparently, the nature of this planet is such that it can fix antimatter directly out of the ion storm and store it somehow. I don't know how that works. That sounds extremely dangerous. That sounds like world-ending type of things. How could that ever form naturally on this planet? Oh well, at least the story's cool, so I'll kind of, I'll overlook it. What? What's wrong? What's wrong, okay? What's wrong? We need to enact Adrik's plan, the one he couldn't finish. If we can finish it, we can get off this planet. But first, we need to fix a captain. What this means is that we need to get Chakotay on board. So if we can fix Chakotay, we can get that antimatter, and we can fix the Protostar in that order. So what do we need to do? We need to kill Chakotay with kindness. Beautiful music here. Rousing, hopeful, cheerful. It's just what I want to wake up to. And Chakotay wakes up to a beautiful new bright morning with our crew, Murf, essentially acting as a windshield wiper to clean the windows on the front of the Protostar, and it's so cute. Jankom's fixing the runaway, and Chakotay says good luck, but he does laugh, and we see the slow transformation of beach bum Chakotay into heroic Captain Chakotay again, and it's all very wonderful. And how can you not love it? I really did love it. By the end of this whole scenario, Dal has been told to go find plasma fruit. Good luck, Dal. Please don't die along the way. He does walk off to get this fruit alone. Very dangerous. Why are we doing this? Dal falls into a tube. He falls into a tube that we realize now is left over by gigantic electric eels that live in this world and dig through the sand and leave massive cavernous holes. Very nice. So essentially, Dal has fallen down these. We don't know where he is. The storms are coming. Chakotay, where are you going? I'm going to pray that the runaway is fixed. Chakotay goes out there, not without Gwyn, not without an engineer. What are we going to do? Jankom, Gwyn, Chakotay, Murf are in the runaway and have to go after Dal. All for one, one for all, right? Dal is down inside of some eel tube. And we go on what amounts to a very overblown, overdone sequence with the runaway. I never loved the runaway in Season 1, and Season 2 it's back, but it's a little better with these anti-gravity wheels. I can't remember if it always has that, but it has it now. So it's a little better. And Chakotay is the one flying it, so it's a little bit easier to believe. But it's all a little bit much. Too much action. I can forgive it when we got too much story. And we got a lot of story. We do eventually find the little cavern that Dal is stuck in. And Dal is not the only one there. Dal is frozen in fear. I came down here to look for refuge from those eels. But you see, someone else did too. And they bring down Chakotay. And this is where Chakotay goes from angry Chakotay to normal Chakotay to sad Chakotay. In that order, we find Adrik's body. The bird guy, he's just a skeleton now. And his idea to get the antimatter, to secure it in this way with these, what I assume to be magnetic bottles, he does have one. And they are charged. He has got antimatter the way he thought he could get it. So he wasn't wrong. He was brave, but maybe stupid. I don't know. He's dead now. And you can hear Chakotay almost about to cry. And it was so incredible. But he doesn't cry. It was... I thought I was gonna, but he didn't. And we didn't. And we're Starfleet, and we're gonna win. Right? I thought this episode, I'll just put it out there now, my feeling after just having finished Star Trek Discovery Season 5, I think this is better than any Star Trek Discovery Season 5 episode. I think this is just better. It's so, this is my favorite Prodigy Season 2 yet. Better than Discovery Season 5 altogether, I would say. That's my opinion. You're entitled to your own. You're also entitled to hate me in the comments or love me. Both are fine. Chakotay, he takes his badge. We leave Adrik's body for now. We come back down. We say, listen, we got this antimatter bottle. What are we going to do? We're going to save the Protostar. We've found Adrik, saved Chakotay, fixed Chakotay. Now we fix the Protostar. That's how these episodes work as a part 1 and part 2. Part 1, fix Chakotay. Part 2, fix the Protostar. It all works out very neatly and very beautifully. In our final sequence for the first part of this, Last Flight of the Protostar, we send Adrik's body off in a boat literally into the clouds. We know that these clouds are actually high-density atmospheric deuterium clouds, in a sense. We'll learn that in Part 2. So when we set sail Adrik's body on this boat, he's going off into the heavens. Visually, we're seeing that. Man, what genius came up with this? This is genius. Who came up with this? Is this the Hageman brothers? Is this their idea entirely? I don't know. These teams that make these shows, it's actually very complicated, and it's very hard to just pinpoint one person. When things go right, it feels like everybody, but when something goes wrong, we always look for one to blame. How about for once, when something's going right, we try to find the one person? How about we do that? Who came up with this idea to fly Adrik off into the sky, into heaven, in a boat, when he is a beak character? He's a bird, but he doesn't have wings, but now he flies away. Think about it. It's the story of Adrik is its own self-contained poem. It's so incredible. I couldn't believe it on the second viewing, what I was seeing. It's crazy. It clues in to visual, thematic, subconscious themes, plays on it. They're all moving in the same direction. You don't notice it until you really think about it. It's so good, and it plays into Part 2, which we're about to get into now. The Last Flight of the Protostar, Part 2. Is this the laster flight? Was the first part the last flight, and this is the second last? Or last after the last? Or first new one? Or is the last not about the final flight? When we see Last Flight of the Protostar, we're saying the previous one, as in the one that happened right before now? I don't know. This is the Last Flight of the Protostar, Part 2. To make, together 1 hour long, wonderful story. First we fixed Chakotay, now we fixed the Protostar. Adrik knew that in order for this ship to see the stars, first it has to sail. Welcome to the HMS Protostar, as Chakotay says. We need to get this ship buoyant. It needs to be floating on the sea of clouds, which is denser than air, we learn. That's very important. Otherwise, this would never work. You can never fly a ship that heavy, and admittedly a little bit aerodynamic, but not that aerodynamic, through the sky with one sail and a few rudders, unless the atmosphere was much denser than that we experience on Earth. If you were a human, you remember Earth, you remember the atmospheric density, and you kind of know in your mind how light physically something has to be, or how much wingspan it has to have in order to get lift. Protostar is heavy and not that big, so it's going to sink like a rock, unless the air is very, very thick, which it seems to be. We take the time to do this, and there's a time lapse. Thank you. In my mind, I hope that this is months, but it seems like weeks maybe go by in this time lapse. Morning, night, blah, blah, blah. We modify the Protostar with makeshift rudders and ropes and all that stuff, and a big sail out of a photovoltaic panel. So cool. We can hash it out here and die slowly, or we're going to do something crazy and live forever. Who knows? We need to get this bird to sail. And the Protostar is stuck in the sand dune. How are we going to get this bird in the air? We vented the warp drive and we ejected the protocore because we were worried about that virus thing. What was it called? Living Construct from Prodigy Season 1. It's okay though now. It's no longer dangerous. Starfleet has a cure, apparently. So, we're okay getting the Protostar in the air. We want to. We're all on board. We're all pulling in the same direction. That's good. We need to get this thing out of the sand. And genius writing convention after genius writing convention here. How do we figure out how to move the Protostar? Well, can the Protostar move itself? Yes. Remember how the Protostar's nacelles went like this to go into protodrive mode? That's right. It's stuck in the sand dune like this. And if we have the nacelles move down, the Protostar actually lurches forward and then goes down the sand dune. It's incredible. This is amazing. Who thought of this? It's so incredible. But there's a rock there, you see. And again, writing conventions that satisfy you, that pay off. They set something up, pay it off. Set up and pay off. We really, really need that. And what we're doing here is there's a rock in front of the Protostar that we need to get away from the Protostar. Originally, Dal tries to pull it away, towing it away with the runaway. This does not work. So our characters say, remember Archimedes, remember your schooling, that we didn't really do, especially if you're Dal. And we use leverage. The rock that's blocking the Protostar from launching itself off this dune, we need to get it away from the front of the Protostar. It's jammed underneath the shuttle bay, in a sense. So we need to use a lever. So, give me a big stick and I'll move the world. And we use leverage to remove this rock. And the shuttle bay door opens. And we all kind of run in. We're going to be okay. We're sailing this ship out of here. And, the sailing of the ship involves standing on top of the ship, which is a little bit iffy, a little bit dangerous, especially when one would assume, right, that magnetic boots at this point would be standard. We'd just be able to go down to a room and pick out the mag boots. But no, it seems like we're standing on top of the Protostar, just free, we're standing free on it. Just our boots, our feet. No harness. This was a little bit much, but it made for a freaking cool scene. It was so cool. Imagine flying a starship by standing on top of the starship and moving rudders and stuff with ropes and steering it with this big stick. It's so cool. And that's essentially what we do. We've built piecemeal by what I assume is old pieces of metal taken from other parts of the ship. We built rudders on the port and starboard sides of the saucer section of the Protostar, which will act to guide us through the atmosphere. And also, our sail will help the wind pull us. So if we're going fast enough, and we're using the rudders in the right way, and the sail is catching the wind, and we're staying on top of this thick atmospheric section, the atmosphere seems to be stratified, so we can breathe up here, but it gets thick down here. If we can stay in the middle, that's good. We'll stay buoyant. We ran the numbers on the computer. I guess we can do it. This is all well and good as long as we're, we're knowledgeable about how a ship works. And we avail ourselves of this opportunity to use all kinds of sailing language. Aye, aye, sir. Heard to port. Yada, yada, yada. Sailing things like on the ocean. And we are sailing on an ocean, in a sense, just an ocean of thick atmosphere. We need to go into that storm. There's a large storm in the distance. It's a deuterium storm. If we can go into the eye of the storm and dip one of the Bassard collectors into the eye wall, we'll be able to collect enough deuterium to react with the antimatter that we got in part 2 in order to fly the ship out of here. Easier said than done, especially when Dal is clearly told, what did they say? They say hard to port. That means to the left. So just kind of reverse your mind here, because I'm probably reversed now, I don't know. And what that means is when you're controlling rudders, the controls are actually inverted. Dal's on the jib, and they say hard to port, and what I see after multiple viewings is Dal doing hard to starboard, which essentially means he's intentionally pulling us in onto a collision course with a mountain. I don't know what that was, Dal, but Dal, let's get your head screwed on straight here. And later on, we learn that this could be an instance of Dal dealing with Pike syndrome. Remember Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, Season 1, and indeed Discovery Season 2. Pike is suffering from knowing his future. Nobody should know their future. In the last episode of Star Trek Prodigy, Devourer of All Things, Part 2, we see Dal accidentally peek into the timey-wimey beam that Wesley kind of devises, and he sees a little instance of his future, and he sees himself say to Gwyn that Gwyn needs the captain's seat or something like that, and Dal is never going to be the captain. So now Dal knows his future. He knows it's not the future he wants, just like Pike. A lot to deal with, a lot to take in. One would think it would be good if you know your future, because if it was bad, you could just avoid it. But I think fate is kind of a thing now in Star Trek, since Strange New Worlds and what happened with Pike. So the Pike syndrome is really getting to Dal, and maybe that's why he's losing concentration. Chakotay puts Dal on rope duty, essentially puts him on the low demand, non-critical duty, after a pep talk from Chakotay, where we really learn what it means to be a captain. We learn why Chakotay is so wonderful. In their conversation, Chakotay basically just feeds him, that yummy sandwich where there's a yummy warm bread, the criticism, and then another piece of yummy warm bread into his mouth, so he comes out feeling good, but he also knows where he needs to improve. That's how you do it, Chakotay. And he tells him about how when he was young, he joined the Maquis. He was very lost. He lost his home, his family. Hard to watch. It was a little bit rough for me to watch it because it was so good. He essentially says, look, where you belong is where you're needed most. There's your key takeaway for Last Flight of the Protostar. And right now, that's rope duty. So Dal comes away with a newfound confidence and a newfound respect for Chakotay, I assume. And both of our captains are now indeed rowing in the same direction, directly into this deuterium storm. And we need to get that deuterium. We do go terrifyingly into the eye of this storm, which is where we need to be. We need to be in the most dangerous spot to get what we need most. See, this is how you write something compelling. We need to be in danger to get free. You only notice this when it's lacking. When it's working, you don't see the strings like a good magic act, which is what these episodes are. This is why you can watch these episodes and overlook crazy things like antimatter coming out of the atmosphere and stuff like that. If your story's so good, you don't really notice. Therefore, nitpicking is usually a sign of the episode in general being bad, and not bad by virtue of the nitpicks alone. Right? See, the antimatter coming out of the atmosphere wouldn't make this episode bad because the episode is good. But if the episode was bad, little things like that would make it bad. You gotta think. We lose our controls. We've ripped the rigging off of the ship because of the power of this storm. We're all below, I want to say below deck, but is the top of the ship a deck? I don't know. We're inside the ship now to get safety, making one wonder why we couldn't control the rudders from inside. Maybe we could have drilled some holes in there and put the rope through the hull of the ship. I don't know. And turned on the a field when we got into vacuum that would seal these holes. That's just me. I'm just an engineer. Don't ask me how to fix these things. Jankom should have known. But we're down inside the ship, and we learn that we're so close to our destination. What are we going to do? We're almost there. Janeway turns herself off to use all emergency power for charging up the Basari collectors. The thing that's going to collect the deuterium, the thing on the front of the nacelles. So Janeway's gone. We're on our own, and we have to go out there, and we have to manually operate the rudder because it's jammed with debris. Remember, we showed our characters moving a piece of debris out from in front of the Protostar using a lever. The setup. We have to do it again in a more dangerous scenario. The payoff. We know they can do it. We understand the stakes. We know what failure looks like. That's why we're on board here. On board the Protostar. We're out there with the strong arm of Rok-Tahk and the rest of the crew pushing this rock out from the wedge of the rudder here. Hard to explain this unless you've seen the episode. There's a lot of technical jargon here about geometry, but suffice to say, we do get this rock out. But we also get something else out too. We get Chakotay out. Chakotay, in a shout of exuberance, we're going to make it out of here yet. Whoops. I don't know, a rope or a rogue wind rips Chakotay right off the surface of the Protostar, and there are no mag boots here, and Chakotay is gone. But Dal knows that where he belongs is the place where he's needed most. He's on rope duty. He takes the rope that's wrapped around him and jumps off the ship to get Chakotay without a second thought. Okay, so Captain Dal jumps off the ship, goes after Chakotay, and you would be forgiven for thinking they're just going to fall forever. No, they're swimming through the ultra-dense deuterium atmosphere, so they're actually swimming here. By the way, you don't want to be swallowing deuterium. It's not good. It's, I'll go easy on you and call it poison, but I know you don't want to be drinking it. he does rescue Chakotay, but he does run out of rope. So he swims the rest of the way, grabs Chakotay, and then they kind of leave this up to interpretation. But it looks like they ride an electric sky eel back up to the Protostar. More detail needed. I wish that was done a little bit better. It seemed a little bit magical, a little bit cute, which Prodigy is guilty of now and then. Not cute in a visual way, but cute in a, contrived way. Oh, wow. That was cute, how they survived that. Wink, wink. But I guess a sky eel brings Chakotay and Dal back up to the surface, and they quote-unquote swim back to the Protostar. They do dip the nacelle into the riptide of deuterium, collect enough deuterium, and we see the top of this vortex here, and we're like, what's happening? We don't know where the Protostar is. It's silent. And then, boom! The Protostar just rips out of this cyclone and flies away on what I assume is impulse, but they do have warp, and it's all so incredible. The visuals are incredible. You have to see it. And the way the Protostar lights up the environment around it, the atmospheric effects, the particle effects here, top notch. This looks so good. And it's something that's so easy to get wrong. Clouds. Believe me, I know this is not an easy thing to get across to the audience in 3D CGI. But we do get out. And we do have, unfortunately, the one little bit of a sour note in this entire sequence here, that being this two-parter. We take the moment to explain the theme. Don't do that. And I believe it's Rok-Tahk who does it again. Rok-Tahk says, like, it's a good thing we had someone to show us the ropes. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more, say no more. It's Dal. And Chakotay says, you sure know how to captain your own ship. Our ship. So now we're all on board. We're all okay with each other. Chakotay's fixed, the Protostar's fixed, and Dal's fixed. You see how it all plays together? Isn't this beautiful? I didn't think I needed our characters explaining it to me, but I guess this show nominally is for kids. And I'm a kid at heart. I'm a grown-up baby. I'm just a big old baby who's huge and scary and bald, just like a baby. And I have the heart of a baby, the heart of a child, but I also have the brain and mind of a child. Watching Prodigy and loving it. That was Prodigy Season 2, Episodes 11 and 12. The last flight of the Protostar. But we're having another flight now, so it wasn't the last flight of the Protostar. It was an episode about the previous flight of the Protostar. Musically, right off the bat, I knew this one was going to be a banger. Right off the bat, we got music that's sad, remorseful, but then comes back around and is cheery. It's rousing. It's not so crestfallen by the end. The music evolves just like Chakotay does. Visually, let's say Asita P-class planet. I already mentioned this, but to me that's Paradise class. Who would ever want to leave? And the Protostar, beautiful as always. I'm loving it. Visually, how can you go wrong? In addition, I'll mention, there was a very, very tiny B-plot here on the Voyager, where we essentially just say, our characters are lost. Where are they? And who's this Wesley Crusher character? Well, I know Beverly Crusher, and then I don't know if it's Dr. Newham, but he says, I had to pull some strings, and I got a conversation going between you and Beverly Crusher, and we have a cameo appearance from what I assume is Gates McFadden playing Beverly Crusher, talking to Janeway, and what amounts to a completely pointless scene. This pointless cameo appearance, it's so short and so useless, it's almost bad. It's almost bad. It almost hurts the pace of these episodes to have anything to do with real Janeway, Admiral Janeway, and the Voyager, let alone Beverly Crusher. That's why I put it in the visual section. It has no plot relevance. It's just there for a visual. I guess, and this character, they don't look that much like Beverly Crusher, but I did like the hair. I thought the hairstyle was cool. It's not the old big hair from the day, but I thought Beverly Crusher's haircut in this episode would have been cool in Picard Season 3. I don't know. But that's just me. Totally pointless scene. Almost veers off into the bad territory. I can't believe it. You can't bring back a character just for a scene where you see their face and they say nothing of consequence. Boy, I sure do miss Wesley. Goodbye now. Goodbye, everybody. I'm Wesley Crusher. I'm leaving the show now. Goodbye. What was that about? No, I don't want that. At least the Wesley Crusher appearance meant something. But that meant nothing. So it's going into the visual section of this review. And don't worry, there was nothing else to the B-plot. Although, Hologram Janeway on the Protostar does mention that she's detected the presence of the Voyager 3,000 light years away. Man, you got one hell of a long-range sensor on that, I'll say that. We fixed Chakotay, we fixed the Protostar, we fixed Dal, we don't have the Protocore, but we've been lost before. Hey, Chakotay? Hey, kids? We've been lost before and we got out of it. We got out of that Delta Quadrant and we're getting out of this. We're building a new star. What a way to end the episode, eh? Everything is thematically in tune. I like a Star Trek episode where every thematic thread is parallel to each other. They're all rowing in the same direction. The nucleus of this episode is second chances, redemption, the rebuilding of a person. Chakotay spends 10 years on Asida, loses his will to fight, loses his crew. He went down with the ship, but he survived. No captain wants that, so he's overcome with grief. But our characters fix him, right? We show him that there's another way. Adrik's plan would have worked, and there's always a chance if you have, the faith of the heart to take that chance. And our characters did, unlike Chakotay, and that's how we fixed Chakotay. But why is it that this becomes the overarching theme of this two-parter? It has to do with Dal. Dal has the same problem. He saw his bad future, you see. His Pike syndrome. He knows he wants to be captain, but now he knows that he can't do it. So Dal breaks down in another way. But because we fixed Chakotay, Chakotay has a puzzle piece that fits perfectly into Dal's soul. You see, we fix each other in fixing the Protostar. The Protostar, fixing the Protostar is really just the microcosm of the bigger picture of fixing our own souls, right? Because without us, the Protostar cannot work. And we fix Chakotay, Captain Chakotay, and we fix Captain Dal, right? He realizes that he needs to be where he's needed most. Where you belong is where you're needed. How can you call this anything other than a straight win, am I right? So we're winning on basically every front. How can we possibly lose? This is an episode that's so good that I need a section to explain how it is that we even lost points. We lost points essentially in the overwrought, overdone, and overly long action section with the runaway. A little bit too much, a little bit too death-defying. These are just people, right? We're not superheroes, are we? Although we become them. It seems a little bit fishy that our characters were able to survive as long as they were on the surface of the Protostar in this storm. It's a little much. Shut up, please. That's a little much. So, our problems for this episode were largely superficial. There was nothing that really went bone deep. Every problem with this two-parter was essentially how it is that we defy physics in certain ways. Being how we get away from these eels so deftly without dying, and how we hang on to the surface of the Protostar without mag boots, and exactly how it is that antimatter can be siphoned out of essentially the storms on this planet. A little bit much, but if this episode were any lesser in quality story-wise or thematic-wise or musically, it would be terrible. But these can only knock off so many points when everything else is so good. We've seen Starfleet captains go bad before. We've seen them go despondent. We've seen them go crestfallen and listless. And we've seen our fair share of captain redemption arcs in the past before. So in that regard, it's not perfectly new. But what it executes on very, very well. For these reasons stated here, I'm going to have to go with, for Star Trek Prodigy Season 2, The Last Flight of the Protostar, Part 1 and 2, a miraculous 7.5. This episode was good enough that I took a walk afterwards. What does that mean? I don't know. I just had to consider things. I'm Lieutenant Merc, and I'm going to see you again next week. So long.